Welcome back to the Talos of Tech podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We apologize for missing last week. The universe is still against us, but we're fighting against the universe, and we're going to see who comes out on top today. How are you both doing?
Mike, what are you doing over here? What happened?
Well, I was flying to
you
San
don't
Diego,
look as attractive
and then all of a
as a
sudden,
regular guy, but
I
whatever.
blinked my eyes when going to San Diego, and suddenly I was in Mike's body.
It's Randy.
Yeah, I
Randy.
don't know what happened, but I'm here.
Thank God.
I made it here. The universe said, you know what? You missed last week, but we want you to be here for this week. So we're just going to put Mike in my body, or your body. I don't know.
Well,
am I?
yesterday was a really freaky Friday, so I think that's how that happened.
Oh.
Freaky.
I understood that reference.
90s movie
We're going to
reference for
call
guys.
you Reichel. New official
Michael.
New official name.
Michael.
For those who don't know, he's from the Talos of EV podcast, filling in for. No, he isn't. He's in his other body. It's fine. So, Randy's here. It's a normal week. Nothing is different, other than the
background.
runtime, which is.
Gonna be short.
Oh, right. He mixed up the
background is
background
different.
this week.
I don't have my
And-
lamp and plant in the corner, but that's okay.
Oh, they are. They're just. We just turned the camera around. You're looking at the lamp and plants right now, Mike. It's camera magic.
I see.
Randy, who are we talking
Yes.
to? The
This
lamp
is on
and-
the other side of the
Well,
camera.
I missed you both so much last week.
Yeah, how was your
Dude,
trip?
And it was wonderful. I had a lot of tech related thoughts along the way. Every time I take a flight, I want AirPods Max. It's really becoming an issue.
Ooh,
because
dude,
I hate AirPods Max, but
I've been
You've been
hovering
too?
over that buy button one too many times.
where are you looking? Are you on the Apple store, or would you consider like
There's some on Amazon. There's a few at Best Buy, like used open box. I'm not paying full price for them at all.
Yeah,
But there's some
of course.
$390 ones. I've seen some $430 ones, and it's like, no.
I think
but really
part of
want
it was I got to try them on again because I went to Apple Fifth Avenue in New York City.
Ooh.
And that's a great store, by the way. Everyone was telling me to check it out.
The underground
It's
one?
cool. Yeah, it's like the big glass box,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
then you walk down the staircase. And I'd never been there, but everyone told me that it was really cool. So when I was there, what's interesting is that being in the tech community and covering so much of Apple news and products and stuff, it has completely killed the joy of going to Apple stores. Like I used to love when I was a kid. Any chance we got, let's go to the Apple store, let's check them out. And now it's like everything they make that I care about, I have. So when you go there, you're just like, yeah,
Nice
I
architecture.
have it. Yeah. Well, that's why we went. The architecture was probably the coolest part of the store. Just seeing all the natural lighting from
You didn't want that
above
Pro
and the
Display
windows.
XDR?
And I did look at the Pro Display. It's still 60 hertz, so I'm like, looks like my laptop, except bigger
Not
and
anymore.
less smooth. So, it still looks good, but not $6,000 good. But while we were there, I was just like, yeah, I want to just go check out the AirPods Max again. Why not? And I put them on, and I was just like, I forgot how comfortable these things are. I love
Very dangerous.
the digital crown adjustment and stuff. So it's just that stupid lightning port, but I can't.
And the case.
Yeah, even the case, that too. I'm almost willing to look past that because I've talked to people in our Discord that keep saying like you can just ignore the case and they still work fine. You just pretend that it doesn't exist. Like just keep them around your neck or whatever and put them on when you need them and take them off. They'll not draw that much power anyway, but even the discounted pricing I have a hard time justifying.
Yep, right?
It's like that's still...
$390. And for me at this point, if they were brand new, $390, I'd be like, yeah, fine. But these things are over a year old now. And it's like,
It's true.
$390 maybe. And then we had some rumors that they might get updated without the digital crown, and I'm like, so it feels like
I was mad about that.
Oh yeah, totally. If they get rid of the digital crown, that's a big mistake in my opinion. But it feels like buying an iPhone in like March. You might get a good deal on it.
It does.
But like, it's like, you're kind of late. You're kind of late.
Sorry. I don't know what the mic sounded like for Mike, but when Nick made that noise, it sounded like whale sounds.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit different than Sony's.
I'm Dory over here.
I'm looking at them right now, and yeah, they're still a ridiculous price of $550 for something that you can't plug into like. You don't have an aux cord plug-in for it, which I think is a detriment for me. It'd be
Buy
nice
one
to use
for
those.
$35.
Yeah. Along with that, I don't know. Like Drew was saying, maybe add like a USB-C port to the thing, or add lossless audio to the most expensive version of AirPods ever. Like
Support the Apple Music features. Why would they do
something? I don't know. Make it like it's big enough. Maybe give it the same thing that the AirPod or the HomePod has, the HomePod Mini, where you're able to like just use those with an Apple Music subscription in your phone, and that's it. Like that'd be nice, but I don't know if you can necessarily. And
Not with they don't have the hardware. I think I don't know. I don't know why so many people bought that. I remember last year trying to explain to everyone that AirPods don't have the hardware to stream internet signal like a HomePod does, and everyone was like, "Oh no, they're gonna get this software update that's gonna allow lossless." And I was like, "It's not a software thing. They have to connect via Bluetooth. There's no other way." But yeah, it doesn't matter, I guess.
do you guys think that's the next update then for the AirPods Max 2.0 or whatever, or second generation?
But I'm not convinced that they're actually going to update them. Like they obviously haven't sold well. That's putting it mildly. Otherwise, they would have had a new color refresh in the past 18 months or however long they've been on the market. I think it was last December that they came out. So
It's a
little bit over a year.
Last December.
Yeah. Last. 2021 didn't exist. It was smashed in with 2020 and like time dilation, TVA, timeline variance, something. But yeah, I feel like if they were gonna do an annual style update, we probably would hear more rumors about it. Even if it was like a spring event kind of thing, we'd hear, new rumors about the new AirPods Max, and we really haven't heard that, which makes me think
You're right.
It's probably gonna be a HomePod,
like
situation.
the OG HomePod. Yeah,
exactly. It's gonna be like it's gonna be overpriced and it's gonna sit there for years, and then many years from now, they're gonna make like the $199 Beats by Dre, Apple branded Beats by Dre, kind of smaller over ears,
plastic.
Yeah, and they sit on top of on-ear headphones is what they'll do, just like they did with the HomePod Mini. And it's at the
So
end
you think this is an awkward middle child that will never get a follow-up?
I would imagine so in this style, which then makes me think, okay, so if that's the case, then I wouldn't mind spending $390 or $430 on this, because even right now a HomePod
looks at the
a HomePod
looks at the AirPods Max case. If that's the case,
it's a bra.
Stop.
One bra. If that's the case, then I would probably not mind keeping them for a while, because even the regular old-fashioned HomePod is still just fine right now. It's not outdated. It's just obsolete. Or I don't know what the term is. Like they didn't replace it with something, right? It's like it's stuck in what features it had, but the features it had, it sounds good. Like the original HomePod sounds good.
Yeah.
But it's
true.
It's not been replaced, not been updated. Even if you had two HomePod Minis, it's not going to sound as good as one big HomePod, just as far as the audio quality and the precision and all the 7 tweeters that thing had. So I feel like if I got the AirPods Max, I'd probably be safe, but I don't know that for sure, which is why I haven't pulled the trigger on it. It's like, but I would love one. Like me and my roommate do a bunch of like audio mixing and stuff, and sometimes that happens late at night. I always feel bad blasting the neighbors out, editing a video or whatever. And it's like if we both had AirPods Max, then we could, do the dual AirPlay pairing with the Mac, and then both be bebopping along. And I'm like, but that's like AirPods Max. Really? I don't think so. So
I don't think I've ever been this torn on an Apple product before, because normally something will come out and I'm like, that's not for me, I don't care about it, and then I move on and then I don't think about it again. Whereas this has been over a year and it's still lingering in my head, and this And I'm not 100% sold on it either, because if
at
I
that point,
was,
maybe we should just get it and then stop this lingering, and then we can have conversations about how much we spent on headphones that we don't use. So maybe that's the.
I actually can't find my other AirPods. I don't know where they went.
Dude, I lost my AirPods Max or AirPods Pro the other day, and I don't know where they are.
Oh no,
They're in the case somewhere.
you still don't. Oh boy.
Do you have like the Find My
Hopefully-
thing on it? Are you able to
No.
like track it down?
That's
a thing.
another situation that I had a lot of experience with on this train ride cross country was I would leave my AirPods Pro in the cabin that we were staying in, and every time we went to the dining car, it was like, your AirPods Pro were left in Denver, Colorado. Like, you're leaving it really quickly, because there's obviously no GPS data on the case itself. All it knows with the Find My network is I am near the iPhone or I am not near the iPhone. And whenever you leave it, it's instantly like, it must have stayed right there. Wherever we disconnected, it is permanently in that location, which for the most part, that's probably true for most people. But every time I went to the dining car, it was like, AirPods Pro have been left behind. Go back, go get them. And I'm like, they're fine. They're back there. Don't worry about it.
Was that jarring
so
the
that was
first
funny.
time when you got the notification that you might have left your
Yeah.
AirPods Pro all the way in, I guess, Denver, Colorado?
I'm not like super attached to them because I've had them since 2019, and I was planning on upgrading to the new ones. Well, I'm not sure. Depends on how much better they are. But I was pretty confident that I wanted to get new AirPods Pro at some point, and I think that'll be this year. So if I lost them, I'd just be like, oh shoot, okay, whatever. But yeah, it was it was weird getting that notification all the time. The other thing is taking the train completely brought my 13 Pro Max battery to its knees, which I was
Whoa.
not used to. Normally the battery life on that thing is great and it gets me through the day, but it's the constant like being in and out of service. You'd go to no service places, and then when the train catches up with the freeway again, that's usually when you get service, because the cell towers like follow the roads for the most part, and they don't follow the train tracks because you go up into the mountains and you go in the middle of nowhere. So you can't really do airplane mode because that'll just not check
Because you're
if
on a
it's service or
train,
not.
Drew.
Obviously.
We need train mode. Can iOS 16 bring train mode? Because if you're on a plane, you're in the air, you're not going to have cell service, so it preserves the battery. Whereas when you're on the train, you want it to be checking if service is coming in, because if it is, then you can text people and check the news or whatever. But going in and out of service and traveling that fast, it really, really hurt the battery life to the point where I was needing to charge at the end of the day, which I was not used to. Normally, I could easily go 2 days on a charge, so that was just a use case I was not expecting. I was like, oh wow, my battery's low. Maybe that's something when Apple makes their own modems in a couple of years they could work on, because we're still on Qualcomm, so that's probably why these are so inefficient at cell tracking stuff. But yeah, it was weird to get that notification all the time. But I think I've actually seen more rumors of AirPods Pro 2 getting lossless support than I have AirPods Max, which is weird. Doesn't feel like those should be getting lossless first, but there was some interview with an Apple executive, and he was talking about how Bluetooth didn't have the throughput that they wanted. And then he stopped himself. He was like, I'm not going to say too much, but we want to get more throughput than what Bluetooth has. So that made me think that they have something in store for these new AirPods Pro. But that rumor was not alongside saying, oh, we want to do this with a new pair of AirPods Max or anything. It was just like, no, just the Pros. Probably because those actually sell pretty well. I saw them all over the place when I traveled. AirPods Pro are really popular, but
Yeah, I see them at my work all the time. I'm curious to see what they bring to the AirPods Pro 2. Whether we're going to see maybe an update in the case where we'll be able to, I don't know, have some little tweeter in there for if we want to signal it for tracking in case we drop it somewhere or leave it somewhere. It could be a nice little AirTag in there, basically. I think you could fit an AirTag in there, or at least the tech in there.
Yeah.
If you're able to improve the battery.
Rechargeable AirTag.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
An AirTag that you can put in your ear.
No, but AirTags are dangerous in being used by stalkers.
That's right. I forgot.
That's
that makes me laugh. Are you guys curious as to why the geo-tracking stalker concerns were never an issue before AirTags?
I think it's maybe the same issue with like when you see a new tech product come out from a popular tech company, and it revolutionizes kind of the landscape of like being able to do something that you weren't able to do before. In this case, be able to track items as easily as buying an AirTag for, I forget how much, $15 or something like that, or $25, or maybe that's for 4. I forget.
I think they're it's 30 for one, and then like 20 for a 4-pack or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But being able to just like drop that anywhere is definitely worrisome. But I don't really see the issue as much. I see it more as an annoyance for other people. As you're on the train like Drew, and all of a sudden you're just getting pinged all the time. Oh, someone left an AirTag right by you. It's like, no, I'm just sitting on the train right next to this person or whatever, or something else. No, I don't either get it, or I don't really see it as too much of an issue. Are there people who want to exploit it and can successfully do that? Yeah, but I would argue that can happen with any tech product out there, or is happening with any tech product out there. There's people that get into the circuitry and are able to exploit the software in ways that the developer did not want them to. But
right.
I don't know. That's kind of the world we live in, right? Someone makes a really cool product and then another person exploits it. And then everyone goes up in flames like, why isn't the developer changing this or addressing this? And the developer...
I don't know how they can, honestly.
Oh, I think it's just the fundamental technology. I mean, Tile's been doing this since 2010, and no one cared. But Apple does it once, and the world's on fire, apparently. So that's the world we live in. It's like either it's not an issue or the world's on fire. Those are the two options you have. And so, unfortunately, that is where we're at. And it kind of sucks because AirTags are awesome. And even knowing that the word on the street, like I have AirTags on all my cameras, just in case I lose them, I can at least
that's
find
smart.
them. Whether or
Nice.
not they're stolen, you can remove the AirTags, whatever, just so I can find them if I ever misplace a camera. But they're on my cameras, and so one of my friends while I was out there working was like, "Oh, why do you have AirTags?" I'm like, "Yeah, so I can find it." She's like, "Well, I heard that like people stalk people with AirTags," and I'm like, "Okay, sure. People stalk people with GPS trackers too. I mean, just stick an iPhone.
Are you
SE.
using GPS? What's wrong with you?
Actually, GPS would be more accurate than these little AirTags. So
Yeah, it would.
And it's just like it's sad that
That's
that's the opinion on the street, right? Like people who don't know much about this know AirTags equals creepy stalker in the shadows instead of AirTags equal find my keys in the dunes when they fall out of my pocket, and I've been hiking around in the sand dunes, but I'm still able to find my keys because AirTags are amazing.
Right. That's what's funny is like AirTags come out and everyone's like, "Oh, Apple didn't create this. This isn't a new thing. This technology has existed and they're just stealing it from other companies." But then now they complain, "Oh, they're causing all these problems because you can stalk people with them." It's like, well, you could do the same thing before, but now the problem is AirTags are really good at it, though. It's like AirTags are actually good at helping you track down things, which means it's more effective. So if a stalker wants to use something, they're going to use an AirTag. It's like, okay, so the solution is they shouldn't make better products because then they're going to be exploited?
How dare you innovate, you terrible person. How dare you make a good product?
I just think inherently that's the type of thing a big tech company is going to do better than a small company, because the fundamental tech relies on a network of devices that you ping to track down. So the company that has the biggest network of devices is going to result in the most accurate network. So, objectively, like regardless of even how Apple implemented, even if Apple literally just carbon cut copied the tile tracker, the exact same design, used the same silicon, used the same battery, everything. It's just now Apple made it instead of tile. Even that would still be better. Like it doesn't matter if the speaker's any different.
Yeah.
It would still work better just because of how strong the Find My network is. So I don't. Yeah, I think it's one of those. I think a lot of times humanity gets upset about something or finds a way something can be exploited, and they're like, "This is a problem. How do we fix it?" And oftentimes there's just not really a solution. It's like, I think the problem is just human nature. You know, people will. I'm sure some criminals use iPhones for.
Wait, criminals use iPhones? No.
No.
Didn't you hear the memo? Criminals aren't allowed to use iPhones. Only the good guys are allowed to use iPhones. At least in movies.
Right. In all the TV Plus shows. I would like to see the memo that says if it's a bad character, they have to use an Android.
That'd be very reminiscent of early film. Like the typical person who's wearing like a bandana eye covering thing that has like little slits. Or no, actually, like the typical ski mask. It'd be like that.
Yeah.
But
average Android user.
Yeah, it will be like Ted Lasso or something like that. And the bad guy, like in the season 3 of Ted Lasso, has an Android phone. You're like, oh, he sucks because he's got an Android. No.
I just think
they don't give him like a old ugly Android. They give him like a Pixel 6 Pro. Or they give him a
I just think
S22.
It'd be really funny if like the director was really trying to have it be a plot twist that this guy was the bad guy the whole time. But Apple was like, no, they have to be using an Android. And so he's like, no, but we're going to be showing our cards early. And Apple's like, no, don't worry about it. No one will even notice. And from the beginning of the movie, we're just like, that's the bad guy. Aunt Beatrice is the bad guy.
Everyone knows.
Aunt Beatrice has this Pixel 6.
Wait a second.
That would be funny.
Doc Ock has an Android phone, and Peter Parker has an iPhone. I wonder if he's going to turn evil.
I was thinking of more of like a reveal. Like, instead of it being subtle, they're in the middle of a tricky situation. They're like, oh no, how do we get out of here? In some Apple TV Plus movie. And then all of a sudden one of the parties pulls out an S22 and all the music swells up like, they're a bad guy. And you know they're the bad guy just because they pulled out the Android and they all back away from him. They're like, oh no. They all get scared. It's kind of like the William Dafoe moment in No Way Home. Like, that's a pretty neat trick. You know, he pulls out the... it becomes... He's an Android user, run! They just treat him like the villain.
Catch the stupid, run!
That makes sense.
I think of like, what was it, For All Mankind, the Apple TV Plus show, where like they're on the Jamestown lunar base, and then one of the Russians just brings out an Android phone, like, they're not our friends.
It's like
they're like the
no,
80s?
it's a different timeline, guys. It's a different timeline. Totally different timeline. Pixel 6 exists in the 70s.
In this timeline, Pixel 6 was done by then. Yeah. That makes... It's an alternate reality. They should do a show in an alternate reality where Apple doesn't exist, and it's like Soviet Russia, like...
Crap.
So the whole country is just in shambles. And in a world where Apple doesn't exist. They just... I would watch that, actually.
Actually, that'd be kind of
I'm
funny.
giving you free
That'd
ideas.
Be a funny short film. Someone wants to make a short
It's
film.
like a comedy about... If only there was some encrypted messaging service out there.
And instead
that could never exist.
Instead of bread lines, it's like they're trying to get their phone, help with their phone at the Best Buy assistant place. Not the Genius Bar. What do they call that? Geek Squad.
Geek Squad.
The Geek Squad. They're all in line at the Geek Squad.
Well, I'm curious if Nick caught this piece of news, because
Probably
I was kind of shocked to hear it, but there was a rumor from a leaker that was pretty accurate in the past, that it's through Mac Rumors. That's the way he doesn't tweet or anything, but he said that next month, possibly within a couple weeks, we're supposed to get an M2 MacBook Pro that is the identical design of the M1 MacBook Pro.
I saw that leak and rumor. I love the
Uh-huh.
idea. I love my current physical designed MacBook Pro. I love the touch bar specifically.
Yes.
I would not upgrade to an M2 chip. I mean, it sounds like another step upgrade, which is great, but literally, I've been using this M1 chip for lots of footage, lots of crazy stuff, and it is just fine. Yeah, it's just fine. Put it that way. When I get an 8K red, I'll think about it. But until then,
Yeah. I do have a feeling the M2 chip won't be that big a difference from the
yeah,
M1.
it'll be like the A15 to the A16. It'll be like
Right.
another step. It's going to be great. 2 times better graphics performance. The neural engine cores but it's still going to be like it's
Twice as many neural cores.
all of the neural cores.
Process
What is that?
2 gigabytes of data in the matter of seconds.
Teraflops. That's the
There you go.
that's
It will
the term.
process.
All the teraflops.
Yeah, I think it will be like if you're in the market for a new machine, obviously get the better chip if possible, but it's the same thing as you don't buy the iPhone 13 over the iPhone 12 for the chip. You're buying it for other things, and usually the chip allows for better camera features, but we don't really have that
It'll
with the
still
Mac
be
here, so
720p FaceTime camera.
it'll be a
on the Mac.
720p webcam.
But it will look
either
better
way.
because it'll have even better ISP, not specific impulse,
The only part
image signal processor.
First of all, I was thrilled to find out that the touch bar might make it
Yes,
another year.
dude, totally. I'm
That got me pumped.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
There's a chance. It's a small chance, but if there's a chance of the touch bar sticking around, I'm like all for it. Because that's probably, I think I'll say that's my biggest complaint of this MacBook Pro. Is
What?
the lack of touch bar.
Wow.
Not that there's much of a complaint. It's still been a great machine. I didn't edit with it on my train trip, but it was a wonderful battery bank because, you can take it on a plane and it's got 3 USB-C ports on it. So wherever we needed to charge, I just had a USB-C port ready to go right there. I just plugged in and it would charge my iPad. It would charge my phone, my wife's phone too. So it was a great battery bank, and I never charged it at all on the whole trip. I brought it back and it was at like 50% after recharging several of our devices. And of course the performance and the microphones and the webcam, I love everything about it, but if I had to pick like top complaints, it would not be the ports. It would not be HDMI 2.0 because I don't use the HDMI port. I still haven't after all this time. I've never used it once. Yeah, it would be nice if the SD card reader was a little bit faster, but I can live with that. But the biggest thing is just I really missed that touch bar on my old MacBook Pros. It was just so nice to enter picture-in-picture and the volume slider and the brightness slider and the predictive texts when you're texting. I'll miss it. I get why they're getting rid of it because all the animoji. Is it? No, it's
It's just emojis. The animojis is
Yeah.
the weird iPhone thing where you can move your face around.
Right. I forgot that's a thing.
That's surprising.
Do
I didn't think
people
that
use
you
that?
missed the touch bar.
Because just the last MacBook Pro that I used for daily work had one, I got really used to it. So obviously my iMac Pro never had one. So when I used that, I wasn't used to having a touch bar. But now that I've gone back to the laptop form factor, I'm like, it used to be like I see them in public. I'll still see people with MacBook Pros that have the touch bar, and I just think it looks cooler. Just having the black
very sleek.
glass all the way across the top. I just think that's a cool aesthetic opposed to just the buttons. I know I'm in the minority there, and like 90% of people didn't want the touch bar, so it makes sense why they got rid of it. But if it was a $300 add-on at checkout, I would pay it. That's all I'm saying. I would pay the extra money. And if the M2 MacBook Pro has a touch bar and I review it, then I'll get to try out a touch bar again, which I wasn't sure if I was going to ever be able to check one out. So If that was one thing I could change about the MacBook, that would be it. I don't mind the notch. Display's great. Size is great. Battery's great. Design is fine. So that's my one request. So if it sticks around, that's great. But the better question is, if there is a March event next month, do you guys think new MacBook Pro, iPad Air 5, 5G iPhone SE, does that warrant an event?
No, but it probably will these days, unfortunately.
I would agree with Nick.
Honestly, I would be so much happier if they just did a website refresh one random Tuesday.
Oh, I know.
I miss those days.
I miss site refreshes.
Yeah.
They were so quick.
My only argument against that is it's always fun seeing Tim Cook and always trying to guess whether he's going to say
true.
good morning or hello at this point. Hello.
There's definitely so much hope and hype leading up to events. It's just, it's always never delivers on that hype for the vast majority of people.
Which is like if they just do the website refresh, even if they don't have, the new iPad Air or whatever, then it's just the website refresh. We know it's there. There's no sadness, But if there's a 30-minute, 40-minute
no more pain.
event, it's like a week of anticipation. That
That 1 week is killer.
It was just like,
because that whole week everyone's like, Apple Glass is coming. I swear, this is it.
I have heard Project Titan has been having some movements. We're gonna get the Apple car.
Right. Yeah, everyone
Pencil
gets so
3.
hyped, and then maybe we'll get a pencil refresh, and everyone gets way too out of whack with the hype leading up for that week. Everyone loses their mind, and then you get to the event, and they're like, "We're introducing a new Apple Music tier." It's like, oh boy, that sounds fun.
Yay.
There's been all these references to Apple making a classical music app, and I'm like,
What?
Like a classical music?
it's like a sub app from Apple Music. It's a separate app specifically for classical music that's been referenced in code. There's rumors brewing around, and I'm like, this is the exact type of thing that they're gonna drop in the first 20 minutes of an event that we're all expecting the Mac Pro to come out at. We're all like, M1 Ultra or whatever. Here comes the chip, and they're like, first, we want to talk about Apple Music, and everyone's like, oh god. Here we go again. There's another tier we're offering.
If you are a person who likes classical music because you're a classy gal, then you shall get these glasses, which we sell, but they're not smart.
We're happy to announce that this music will debut in Ted Lasso Season 3, which is, here's the new trailer for my favorite show.
We gotta watch
Which you
15
can watch
trailers of TV.
for $5.99 a month on Apple TV Plus.
Oh, they're upping the price. That would be an event.
They would definitely make an event
For
for that.
just-
$4.99. Oh yeah, sorry, $4.99. Yeah.
It'd be
No, you're right,
$5.99
Nick.
then.
Well,
It will be
they just need to keep
$5.99.
up with Netflix at this point, and just be like,
Yes.
we need to charge.
Adjusted for inflation.
Like those Netflix prices are like legit bad. I haven't had Netflix in 3-4 years, and I looked the other day when everyone was like, "Oh, Netflix raised their prices," and it's like one screen at like HD was like $10 a month. I'm like, well, what?
No, it's not even HD.
Was it even HD? Okay, was it HD?
The $10 a month tier is 480p on
480p.
one screen.
Okay, I remember being insulted by it, but I was like, it couldn't have been that low, and I was just thinking about it just now. It was. Oh no.
I'm insulted by it. I think I want to know what the take rate is.
But
on that
wait,
plan.
there's more.
You can pay us $30 and get all the features you should have had at the $10 tier.
No, I don't understand. Well, the truth is, maybe just because I'm might be the target demographic, but having toyed around with all the different streaming service options, I've had the most luck with Netflix finding something I'm interested in. They just have probably one of the biggest catalogs of all streaming sites, and they're definitely more of a young adult / old adult demographic, whereas Disney Plus has a ton of content, but it's definitely going for more family oriented. And they throw the R-rated stuff on Hulu. Netflix isn't afraid to throw up all the inappropriate, like adult content right on the homepage.
Followed by Cocomelon.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like Trending in America. Naked and Afraid. Or it's like, Too Hot for You and Cocomel. They put it all right up there. They try to have the kids version, but yeah. Oh. They just they give in to the the YouTube clickbait approach of well, seems like all the nudity sells, so let's put that on the homepage.
Just a bunch of
followed by
board guys sitting around in a boardroom, and they're just like, so nudity.
I think the 4K Netflix plan is $20 a month. But that inevitably when Apple raises the price on TV Plus, it will have to be, objectively, they will have to do it alongside demoing all the new stuff coming, right? Because they can say, all these new movies and shows for $5.99, which we think is great value. Because you got to announce there's a price hike, but you got to justify it by saying, look at all the stuff coming out.
Yeah,
look at all these trailers.
They're going to go straight up to $9.99. If they ever up the price from $4.99, they're going to go straight to $9.99. Whether or not they can actually justify that, I don't know. But I would imagine, I'd imagine that the reason
I feel like they can't justify $4.99.
No, yeah, okay, fine. You and I, you and I don't.
There's
have
a reason
Disney
why
Plus.
I canceled my free trial.
Exactly.
Nick, you have it.
I do have it. I don't have Disney Plus. I said you and I both don't have Disney Plus.
Oh.
I do have it,
yeah.
but only because I need more iCloud storage. Which is the dumbest thing ever. Thank you, Tim. Still mad at you about that.
If you need more iCloud storage, you need to watch Ted Lasso. Right.
Wow.
That makes sense.
That would be an Apple move. We're gonna force you to watch the show.
Hold your eyeballs open.
If anyone watches the new episode of The Morning Show, you unlock another 5 gigs of storage.
I would.
That's great.
I need the storage.
I would watch it, yeah. I'd leave it playing and go in the other
Go
room.
clean the house or something.
Yeah.
Anything else.
Intentionally.
They'll have the
Literally
eye
do
tracker,
chores.
kind of like, what was it, that one company that's forcing you to watch, is it Movie Pass, I think. Movie Pass now has a new thing where you have to watch ads, and it comes with like a camera or it utilizes a phone camera.
Oh, no.
To where
oh, my God.
it watches you watch the ad, and it can tell if you're not watching the ad.
Oh, that's crazy.
That's
I was just thinking of that on the plane ride, because we took some really cheap flights to Vegas, and I was like, they could easily put in cameras to pause the ad if you're not looking at it. I think there's a Black Mirror episode about that. Oh, I don't like how good of an idea that is for the business.
You know, some business execs have thought about that. It's scary.
To get lower flight fares, you're gonna have to just stare and not. Every time you blink, it pauses the commercial for a half second.
And then goes 10 seconds back to make sure you didn't miss anything. Have a good one.
Thanks for joining, Nick.
Bye,
Take
Nick.
care.
Have a good one.
We'll see you next week.
Good morning.
Nick has a life, unlike us.
Nah,
so
no life
we're
here.
gonna-
I'm just gonna
Good
sit
morning.
here with my my iPad Mini and
Oh yeah.
sketch things.
How has that been?
Yeah, I guess.
Finally, someone on the podcast is keeping an iPad Mini 6.
Yeah, well, it's also my first time on the podcast. Hello again. Yeah,
Welcome.
This is probably one of my favorite Apple devices, and I need to use it more. I got gifted this Starlight iPad Mini for Christmas.
Ooh,
and
lovely.
From my wonderful mother, and she bundled it with a folio cover and the Pencil 2.
Wow.
Which is pretty funny because in that same year I bought
Can
a
she
Pencil
be my
1.
mother?
Can she be my mother? How I Met Your Mother.
Through the Apple Pencil.
Through the Apple Pencil. So I have 2 Apple Pencils now. But
Okay.
my impressions from the, I guess, 3 months that I've had it, because I got it in December, has been fantastic. I took a flight to New Mexico recently, and it was a fantastic device I could easily put in a small knapsack and go. And then when I'm on the flight, I'm just reading a digital comic or watching a show that I downloaded or sketching something. And it doesn't take that much space. So it was...
Yeah.
It's a decent
device. Can you pocket it?
I can pocket it. I've
it?
got big enough pockets. My wife cannot.
Good.
Which
that
she's
makes
a
sense.
little bit jealous of. But I mean, that's the clothing industry for you. I think Apple's next product should be Apple Pants.
You remember my tangent about pockets now.
Yeah, I guess so. They should definitely
it's like, we don't need we don't need foldables. We just need bigger pockets. I think that's cheaper and easier.
I think so.
I want a phone the size of an iPad mini. Like, I would totally be down if it had a cellular, like, with a phone call option and stuff, and I could partner it with my Apple Watch, give it the iPhone camera. It's got USB-C already, so perfect. You know, give it the 120 hertz. I will just take a 8.3-inch iPhone that doesn't fold up. I don't need it to. Just give me big fat pockets to stuff it in, and I'm good.
The iPhone 14 Max or Ultra Max.
Max
Max squared.
Dual Max.
Dual Max?
Ultra. Yeah, the new S22s launched while I was away. They're very boring. Sorry.
They do look boring. They look kind of iPhone in a sort of way, but also they don't look as unique as they did in the last generation, which I'm a little bit disappointed by.
And to be fair, just so people don't think I'm biased, but I am. I am very biased. However, I think Apple has the same problem. Samsung is dealing with the same issues Apple is dealing with. The reason I'm not planning on upgrading this year is because I don't think there's enough changes year over year with iPhone upgrades anymore. It's the exact same problem with Samsung. Like, differences are so like, the camera's a little bit better. Now it's cool that they got a S Pen in the Ultra, so that's kind of the new Note option. But
the Note but not Note.
Note but not a Note, yeah. It's kind of distorts the market a little bit because there were definitely, I think, some people that wanted an Ultra Galaxy that didn't need the S Pen or that didn't want extra space in the phone being occupied by a stylus. They would have rather had bigger battery or something.
Or another lens.
Right.
Just stick another one in there.
People comparing the regular S22s are kind of abandoning a lot of what Samsung fans used to be really into in favor of, well, this is what the industry is moving on with, so we're going to do that as well. So it's like, yeah, I'm sure it's good. You know, I'll keep it on my list if I ever do that, like, 1-year Android challenge, which I'm planning on doing at some point. But yeah, it's like all of 2020, I reviewed like every type of Android there was. I reviewed a $2,000 foldable, $1,000 foldable. I reviewed a $300 Android, $700 Android, and a $1,400 flagship Ultra. So I covered all the bases, and all of the reactions from the video were, you're an Apple guy, I don't really care what you think. So I was like, well, I'm not getting anything out of these. I was just doing them because I thought people would find them interesting. But if people don't find them interesting, then fine. I don't mind skipping because breaks my iMessage ecosystem whenever I switch to the green bubble. So I'm okay just staying within the Apple ecosystem for my content reviews. But I do know if I review an Android again, I want to try it for more than a couple weeks, which is what I used to do. I want to try long-term commitment, see if I could get comfortable with it. But
I found with my Pixel 2, it took some time to get used to it because I went from...
Oh, yeah.
What was it? I guess...
You had a Pixel.
Yeah. My quick phone history
Get
is...
off the show.
I don't have one anymore.
I'm
stuck with a little iPhone 11 Pro.
That's great.
I started with Samsung with the little foldables, the little flip phones, I guess, and then went to the dual flip phone. Yeah, well, they were foldables. And then went to, oh goodness, what was it? The Droid. I think I went to the Droid, which had like a little slide. And then from there, I went to, I think, the iPhone, the 5S, which I used to have here. I think I put it somewhere else. Classic design. I love that thing. And then
that's the one I never owned.
Oh, I enjoyed it. I had a great time with it. I think the only reason why I got it was, one, Apple finally went out of AT&T's ecosystem and went to other ones like Verizon, which is what my family used, and which allowed me to get I think that's when the 5s finally came, or when they were out, and I only got the 5S just because there was an AI in there called Siri that was able to do things, which you never really used much, or like you used it for the first week, like, look at all the things Siri can do.
I think Siri was with the 4S.
Was it in the 4S?
That's when
when
Verizon entered the picture, because I remember the S being for Siri originally. That was what they were bragging about. But
maybe it was the fingerprint reader. Maybe that's what I was
that was definitely new. That was, well, I think others had done it, but not at large scale. It wasn't like a popular model. So that was different.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But anyways, then I jumped out of the Apple ecosystem, cancel me, into Samsung. I did the Edge, and I enjoyed that Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge. Was it? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was a good phone. I loved that thing. I never really used the Edge as much as it was advertised, of course. But
Right. I don't think anyone did.
No.
That feature's like gone now. Like barely anyone has it now.
No.
It's pretty rare.
And then after that, I went to the Pixel 2. I guess getting to the Pixel 2, it was different because it was still Android, but it was like Google's own version. And
Right. Stock Android.
Yeah. And it had a fantastic camera. I love the thing. And if I were to go back to an Android phone, I would probably go to a Pixel just because I had such a fun time with the Pixel 2 and the camera was amazing for as many years as I had it. I guess Google thought that as well because they put it in the 3 and I think the 4. They put the same camera sensor.
Right, the same sensor over the years. I would want to, just because I like the concept of one company being in control of the hardware and the software, which you could pretty much only do with the Pixel because you can't. Samsung doesn't really make Android, but they skin it a bunch. The only issue is I have heard so many complaints about the software on the Pixel 6. Like, so many people have said how buggy and unreliable and the frame drops and the crashing. And that's always been the problem from the beginning for me, is just that the software is so unreliable on so many of those Pixel. I was just talking a few months ago to my dental hygienist who was on a Pixel 2, I think. And she was like, I'm looking to get a new phone. And I was like, well, if you like the Pixel, there's some really cheap ones now. And she was like, I want an iPhone because the software on the Pixel had aged horribly and it was dying on her before it reached 0%.
Oof.
Which is funny that she mentioned that because that's what kickstarted the whole Apple slowing down the chip thing. The whole reason they did that was because people were complaining about the phone dying before it reached 0. So they like downclocked the CPU so the battery would last longer, but then everyone got mad and saying Apple's intentionally slowing down the phone. The problem is they were just not being upfront about, yes, we are slowing it down. And I think there were customer service chats that claimed, no, we aren't doing that, but you just need to get a new phone. So they were like, no, you can't do that. You have to disclose that you are slowing down, which they do now. But what's funny is when other companies don't do the same thing, that results in everyone getting frustrated. They're like, this doesn't work for you. You'd rather have the battery die at 0.
That's usually the
Even
ideal
if the
case.
CPU
I never really had that problem though, only because I'm usually nearby a plug, whether it's a 110 outlet or a computer that has USB-C or USB-A plug or whatever.
How many years did you have the Pixel 2? It wasn't probably that long.
I was in the first batch of people who got it since I was in the Bay, and I ordered it day one with the I got like the Pixel Buds with it. And
oh yeah,
a lot of people didn't like them. I loved them, and I thought they were a fantastic piece of technology. I
never tried them.
The translate thing was interesting. It would work. Or I had a few friends that were bilingual, and I had them speak to me in a different language, and it would translate in my ears, and I would repeat it to them to be like, "Yeah, that's basically it."
Wow.
So I thought they were fantastic, but how many years did I have the Pixel 2?
We've met up several times. I've never seen your Pixel Buds.
Oh yeah, I've got them hidden somewhere. I think they're
so good.
They're in that weird felt case that was square and had the weird like seams on the end. It's hiding somewhere, probably in my tech junk drawer in another room. I've got so much tech junk, so many Game Boy Advance and other things, but I think
we all do.
If you know the timeline between the Pixel 2 and the iPhone 11 Pro, because that's what came after the Pixel 2 for me. So
2 years.
I guess 2 years. I had it for 2 years then.
Yeah.
And it was a good phone for those 2 years. I think my only issue was, I don't even know. I don't even remember, besides the fact that, that was it. I watched the Apple keynote or whatever, not keynote, but the unveiling of the 11s. And I thought it was the most hilarious thing that there's 3 camera lenses on the back of the phone.
Yeah.
I'm like,
the stovetop.
It's a stovetop. That's hilarious. Why would anyone buy that? And then me, a couple months later, I bought the stovetop phone. Actually,
Just for the meme.
it was probably just because I thought, well, you know what? More cameras or more lenses means more opportunity,
cares.
or I guess, yeah, able to, I guess, a better ability to get different pictures. And the cameras still, I would think they hold up still to today, having the phone for, I think, 2 years now. Yeah. I got it in January of 2019. Yeah. No, 2020. I got in 2020.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's when they were pretty new.
Yeah, I would think so. It's a good phone, but yeah, I guess going back to it, if I were to go back to Android, I would think at this point with Google getting so much backlash from the Pixel 6 slowing down, that the Pixel 7 should improve on this issue greatly. Because
You'd think that.
you would think, you would hope, I guess, and that is my hope.
You would hope.
That's my hope with Google, is that they want to provide something that rivals the iPhone. I mean, they came out with the Tensor chip recently, and that's their version of Apple Silicon. So I would think with their first iteration of it being this controversial with the software issues and some of the hardware issues that I've noticed, they could improve on it and maybe stick with that cool visor design that they've got. I like that a lot better.
I like the visor design, yeah.
Whatever was going on with the phone industry with having lenses kind of bumped out in a corner.
Bumps everywhere, yeah. The visor makes sense because it prevents the wobble, and it also just looks a lot more iconic than everybody else, which is, well, Apple's iconic because they're Apple, but Samsung has tried like every combination of camera bump.
Stoplight and
right.
Quad lenses and everything. Yeah, I like the
built
organization.
into the chassis, not built into the chassis, but yeah, I like the look of the Pixel 6. Not more than my iPhone, but I just think Google is known for this kind of like half-baked approach, or like not ironing out the details. Because I remember having all of these software issues and bugs with the Pixel 1 and then the Pixel 3, and every time I tried it, there was always something hanging up and not working properly, or overheating problems. I had my Pixel 3 overheat on me when using the Pixel charger. It was like just the Pixel stand they made, which I still have the stand actually, and I just dropped it on the wireless charger, and it was losing a charge. The percentage was going down, and it was overheating to the point it shut off. I was like, this is when Google has complete control over the hardware and the software, and this is the outcome. So all these years later to find out, like, it was cool. I was excited that they made their own chip, the Tensor chip. I was like, okay, now they're getting serious about it. They're getting into their own silicon game.
Mm-hmm.
But then we see all the real life results, and it has terrible battery life.
Yeah.
And the performance is not really anything better than the Snapdragons they were using before. And the main advantage is machine learning, like the smart features, like the live text is a lot better than everyone else. And if you want to like magic erase things in pictures, it's really good at that. But yeah, everyone was kind of surprised that like you'd think 4,000, 5,000 milliamp hours in a phone would get decent battery life, but so that's kind of what I expect. It's a Google chip through and through. It's as efficient as Chrome, chugging through all their efficiency, and just not quite Apple levels of ironed out and simple. And iOS has its fair share of bugs too, but I just haven't heard as many complaints.
You pay for what you get is what I found.
Yeah.
If you want something that's a little bit more stable and a little bit more premium feel, you go for an iPhone. If you want something that has some interesting quirks to it and is a little bit cheaper, you can go for like a Samsung or a Pixel. And they both have their pros and cons.
Yeah. I would definitely recommend people to get an A series of Pixel before any other Android, just because I think that's how you can get a big display, which is what a lot of people care about, and it's kind of expensive on an iPhone. You can get a very big, rich, good pixel density, good dynamic range display on like a $400 Pixel, not a $400 iPhone. and the Pixel cameras have always been really good at photography. So if you're just looking for a good display, good camera, that's gonna be my go-to. The 6 and 6 Pro is like, okay, now you're getting into the techie side of like, oh, this is refresh rate and extra lenses and all that additional stuff that I don't think matters to the everyday person as much.
No.
So if you're like, also I think when you're spending that kind of money on a phone, resale value is a really strong argument for iPhone, just because of you can hold on to it for years and still recoup a lot of the cost later. Whereas with an Android, it's like it tanks in the first year really fast. So if someone is considering Android, I was like, I'm not going to have a great counter argument if someone finds a $400 Pixel that has a good display and a good camera and be like, no, you should have spent $800 on this one iPhone. It's like, that argument won't hold up as well as like comparing $1,000 phones to each other. That's when you get into the techie weeds a bit. But
yeah, it's almost like comparing a Bugatti to a Civic. Like the Civic
right.
is great.
You should have got this.
Yeah.
Or a Rimac Navara to a Plaid Model S.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Very different. Mass market versus limited production.
Yeah.
And just the semantics of it as well. But
right.
yeah, I don't know. I blame you though for getting all this Apple stuff. I don't think
I've been held responsible for so many people, but I don't recall ever making a video of like, you should switch to the ecosystem.
No.
Here's why.
And I know that just because I'm talking with you on a 24-inch iMac, which you've vocally said multiple times. It is the worst computer ever because it's got a white bezel. And I say the opposite of, I think it's perfect. One, because you can kind of see the room I'm in is white, and so is the corner that I'm kind of talking into right now, where the frame works perfectly. Yeah, is there a black line in between? Yeah, do I notice it? Not really. But
also the white balance of your ceiling light doesn't match the white color temperature of the bezel.
I mean, I could do that because I've got like a huge strip up there, so I could.
You could
dial that in, but I don't.
But if it was a black bezel, it wouldn't matter what the lighting was. It would always match.
Maybe. Do you think that? Do you think that Apple would put a white bezel on the iMac Pro this year if they're going to make an iMac Pro this year, or would they stick with like the black everything?
I don't understand. Personally, I don't understand why they put the white bezel on anything. It makes it far harder to match different environments, and it makes the black line a lot more noticeable. And it definitely just adds extra layers of complexity, I think, when you're watching content. And when you have like white line, black line, because you have black bars when you're watching videos and stuff, and maybe less so on an iMac because it's 16:9, but still a lot of movies and shows are narrower than that. So when you have color chin, white bezel, black bar, and content, it's just too many layers. I think the chin is too much. I was hoping they would just ditch that and keep the bezel black. But if
like
it's used for color correction,
7-layer dip, dude. Like,
yeah.
Do you not like dip? That's 7 layers.
Right. If I'm eating it, not looking at it.
An edible iMac.
But if it's used for color correction, having the most neutral border possible is quite beneficial, especially if you're comparing color temperatures of white balance and stuff. It's quite helpful to just have an absence of light at the edge of the display. That's why all of our iPhones have black bezels. All of our iPads now have black bezels. All of the MacBooks currently have black bezels. So I don't really understand the argument for the 24-inch iMac to have one. From what I've heard, people asked Apple about it in interviews, and they said something like they intentionally wanted it to not be a Pro device. Like it was supposed to go so far in the opposite direction that it's like supposed to match with the drywall of rooms. It's like it's a white background, so it's about matching that white background. I just think there's well, I'm looking at the room right now, and I'm like, you get more of these like yellow tints. There's so many different shades of white when you do a white bezel, and most people don't get the color temperature accurate anyway. It looks good on Apple's impossible to achieve website when it's just a solid white background.
Yeah. It's like a Tesla white
'cause-
on the seats or like whatever.
right.
Like
It's really clean.
infinite void of
But-
white.
Infinite void, it looks like it blends in a little bit, but and also they put the display always on, and on the renders on the website you'd barely see the black line, whereas in person it's a lot more noticeable. So
Yeah.
like I don't agree that that's a reason to do it, but if their argument is that it is supposed to blend in with the kitchen or the bedroom, then I don't see how the iMac Pro would fall into that same argument. Especially as Apple has shown with like iPad Air versus iPad Pro, they want the Pro devices to be more neutral colors like silver and black and gold and space gray, whereas the entry level like the iMac and the iPad Air, they have all these vibrant color options to choose from. But even if that's the case, iPad Air has black bezels, and iPhone SE and budget iPad have black bezels, and they used to not. They used to have white bezels, and they got rid of them. So I would love to hear their argument as to why they thought budget iPad at $300, you don't need white bezels anymore. We're switching you to black, but iMac should have white. Like I guess the drywall argument is the only thing. It's
Yeah.
but the drywall must match with kitchen wall.
What would you think of a gray bezel on the iMac Pro then? Just
It's the same problem.
Same problem,
There's too many shades to choose from that won't be color
I've heard there's
matched.
about 50 of them.
There's about 50 shades of space gray. And I just think that displays are naturally black when off. I would probably be more comfortable with a different colored bezel if the display was a different color when it was off. Like in this one episode of Black Mirror, Nosedive, they have phones that turn different colors when they turn them off. Like they don't turn black. One lady, Bryce Dallas Howard's character, had like a rose gold looking device, and when it turned off, it was just rose gold on the front. And I was like, there's an aesthetic I could, like, if the display just turned white when it was done being used, that would probably look really clean and not like eliminating light, but just default white. There's like a sheet of paper when you were done using it. Then I would say, okay, but it just creates more gaps and intrusions in the process where black is just trying to absorb all light. There's fairly few shades of black, at least in the bezel world. So I just think that looks the cleanest. I just aesthetically think that, like, I love the look of the Pro display, and I was hoping that they would just put an iMac in that design. That was what I was rooting for, but now I don't think that's going to happen even with the iMac Pro. I think it will have black bezels, but it'll probably still have a chin because they want it to look thin and narrow like the 24-inch iMac, which I don't really understand why thinness matters in a desktop design. It's kind of like bragging about the new Apple TV being thinner. It's like, okay, great. With mobile devices, I can get it.
Yeah.
You know, it's lighter. That makes it easier to pack around. But what's funny is they've made iPhones thicker every year for the past like 7 years, and the new MacBooks are thicker. So like the mobile devices are getting thicker and the desktops are getting thinner. It's like, why does it matter? I guess it looks cool from the side, but I never see it that way. So
Yeah. It's more of like, I think their idea is it expands further than the home. It goes into businesses. It goes into workplaces. It goes into everywhere else, to where if you've got one of these iMacs, people are like, whoa, look at this advertisement. I want one of these.
right.
Where
there were a lot of iMacs at like kiosks in New York City, like a lot of just sitting there. But I did not see a single 24-inch iMac. They were all the old 27-inch model.
Well, of course, because the 27-inch has been around for a long time, where the 24-inch has only been around for, I think, a year now. A year and
yeah, just about a year old.
Yeah, so it's gonna take a while for this entry-level iMac to get in and whatever businesses that it can. But I agree, the thinness is perplexing. I get it's more of like a status symbol of, look what we can do with how much space we can fit things into and call it a day. But
right,
I don't know. Yeah, I don't rotate my computer that much. But whenever I do marvel at how thin it is.
I guess I'm less
easier to
impressed
move.
because, sure, well, people are like, wow, the whole computer's so thin, but I just keep thinking, like, I mean, we have iPads with batteries and displays and cameras and ports and speakers, and those are like half the thickness of the iMac. So I know you can do a mobile device that's battery powered that's thinner. So the fact that you can do a desktop with no battery that's twice as thick, I guess, takes away relative to other all-in-one desktops. It's very thin, but if we're just talking computers, which we know the iPad and the iMac now are using the same CPU, they're both powered by the M1. It's like I'm less impressed because I know you can make computers thin now. That's not like a new revelation to me. It's not like, oh, I didn't realize they could do that. Maybe it's more impressive because it's a bigger display. Now you can get a 4.5K display that thin and still have decent sound quality in the speakers. I guess iPad speakers aren't quite as good, but you have more space in the overall chassis to work with, so it makes sense. It just blow up an iPad. If you just took an iPad design and expanded it, sure, you could probably get better sounding speakers in there. But luckily, that iMac was not targeted for me. It's always upsetting when you feel like you're in the market for something or there's a product that has potential and they make it and it just doesn't fit your needs or they miss the point with you. Luckily, I wasn't in the market for a 24-inch iMac. That wasn't really something I needed. It's more upsetting when like I'm in the market for an external monitor and I'm trying to find like a big screen I could dock my MacBook with, but the only option is 60 hertz and $6,000. So I'm worried that later this year, if they do release a standalone monitor, it's going to be like, now it's $3,000 and it's still really expensive. And maybe they do something that doesn't really go with what I like, or they limit the ports, or I don't know, something about it. You still need to buy a stand to go with it.
Yeah.
Like
That's kind of the issue with
$1,000.
Apple these days. Like I remember, even though that I may not seem that old, I remember the days when Apple was considered a consumer friendly, or I guess it's still consumer friendly, but I guess cost friendly device. And now it's something a little bit more expensive, and you have to shell out a lot of money for it, or at least you have to save a bit. And then also they don't cater to what you want in a lot of cases. Like for the iMac or the 24-inch iMac, we have off, like not even saturated colors, very like desaturated, muted colors.
Right.
And like the more saturated colors on the back of it, which you're not going to be looking at. And
They
got
put all the paint on the side you never see.
but it's got okay specs, but it's not what I'm looking for. And the same can be said about the next XDR display or something that's a little bit less than the XDR display that still has fantastic specs, but maybe it's got its quirks. I mean, I wouldn't think Apple would just model it after an iMac screen where they'd give it a chin and they'd be like, look, it's like you have an iMac. Like, I don't think they would.
I hope not.
I don't think they'd do that. And I don't think
Yeah.
they would want to step on LG's toes if they're still planning on having LG products on their site. But yeah, I would agree with you that it's a fine line that they'd have to walk, and it might just be a very expensive version of what LG is offering, in which then you'd just be like, well, why don't I just go with the LG at this point? If LG is going to offer something that's got the specs that I want. So
Right.
it's tough, especially when you're so dedicated to a company that produces great products, but they're not producing what you want, and you're kind
And the lightning port.
and the lightning port. And so you have to go to some other company or maybe some third party that like has an obscure name but offers all the things you want, but is still like a decent price, or you have to get a stand for it, or you have to find a mount for
Right.
it for your desk or something like that. Like it's a headache, which is why I defaulted to an iMac, because I could have easily gone for Mac Mini and then tried to figure out what display to get, but then there'd always be in the back of my head, did I get the right display? Could I have bought this? Or like months later I would see on like Instagram Marketplace or something else like, hey, look at this new gaming monitor that does all this stuff that's way
Right.
better than yours. And I'm like, I'd rather be safe and go for something that's made with a company that I trust and I know is made with quality and will probably last a very long time and will not be outdated within a few months or a year.
Right.
Which is why
Apple's definitely been known for longevity a lot better than most of their competitors.
Exactly, which is partly why I love the 24-inch iMac. Like, yeah, the bezel...
It's made it a year.
It's made it a year. It's been fantastic. It's only had 1 or 2 hiccups in the time that I've had it, but I love it. The only thing I don't like is the port situation where I've got a whole bunch of adapters sitting on the or on the backside of it. They're kind of sticking out underneath it right here. And
Yeah.
it's just a whole bunch of USB-A cords that it's for devices that I can't switch to USB-C without a dongle.
Right.
So I'm kind of just stuck with, okay, I guess I'll use a dongle and I'll plug into the back, but then there's only 4 ports. What do I do at that point? Like, it's a desktop. I should have more ports technically because this is something that is static. It's staying there. It should have some of that modularity versus like a laptop or a tablet where you're not expected to support that many external devices. So
That's the funny thing. The SD card slot used to be on all the iMacs, and then they got rid of it with the 24-inch, but then they put it on the MacBook at the same year. Like, you don't get an SD card. Okay, you get an SD card.
Yeah.
It's like...
I don't use SD cards
it's
too much. The most I use it for is recording footage on my Tesla with a micro SD, and then I use a micro SD adapter, which is just a regular SD card, which then goes into the dongle, which then goes into the iMac.
There's so many adapters upon adapters.
My only request for Apple is to either try to do the same thing that they did with USB-C and forcing the tech community, or I guess just the industry in general, to adopt a standard, or at least provide some of those things that came back with the MacBook Pro. A lot of the other things that just went away for years and then suddenly have come back, like bring that back with desktops. I know not many people have desktops these days necessarily. A lot of people have moved to more modular like you. You're a fantastic example. You're able to do your business and go wherever the heck you want. You can take a train all the way to New York City, or you can fly to Vegas or whatever, and it doesn't disrupt your content, or at least it might, but at least you have that option to not let it as much, where you could work on the flight, or you could work on the road, or on, I guess in your case, on the rail.
On the rail.
On rails.
Yeah.
So
that's I think the difference now is just that there's so little compromises with laptops, because I can even remember not too long ago when it was like, well, you could buy a laptop, but for the same amount of money, you can get a desktop that will be way faster or have way more storage. And now that kind of compromise has gone away to the point of, kind of for similar pricing, you can just about get a laptop that will, in the case of the M1, I feel like it's cheaper. I mean, technically a MacBook Air is an all-in-one because you don't need additional hardware for it to work. And it's got the M1 chip in it, just like the 24-inch iMac does, and it costs less. So you've got your speakers, you got a battery, you've got a keyboard, a trackpad, you got everything you need. Whereas that used to really not be possible. You would have to put up with this kind of scaled down, crappy CPU if you wanted a laptop, but then you could get a full speed one if you had a desktop. And there's little differences between, a fanless M1 and a cooled M1, but for the most part, they're pretty on par with each other. So
unless you're doing really heavy duty stuff, it's never really an issue.
And I think their port decision with the 24-inch iMac was probably because they figured most people aren't going to plug in much to this anyway. They view it as, this is just the kitchen bedroom iMac that you FaceTime with, that you can pull up your recipes on the screen, So they're not thinking of like plugging in
a printer,
microphones or printers. Well, I guess a printer's a good example. Maybe that's something you would want to plug in, but I guess Apple would rather people make wireless printers or use your AirPods with this iMac. They
Yeah.
even though it's got a headphone jack, but their thought process was just the market we're targeting doesn't need the I/O, so USB-C is fine. Whereas the MacBook Pro, that market would appreciate the added I/O, so that's why they brought back some ports with it. I guess that logic makes sense, but yeah, it's for me at least. It would have been a detriment if I was like waiting for a new desktop to come out with the M1 Pro or M1 Max, because I would still be waiting right now. I'd be waiting for it to come out all the way in February, and hopefully they make a Mac Mini with an M1 Pro or M1 Max at this next event. But I just have a feeling that's going to sell way too well, and I'm starting to believe this report about the M2 chip being ready earlier than we expected.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I get these gut feelings about certain leaks, especially when they sound not very exciting. When it sounds like a leak that someone wouldn't make up for a clickbait video or a clickbait headline. It's like the rumor is they're going to use the exact same design as before and they just throw in a new chip. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds really boring. It's probably real.
That sounds like Apple.
If it's something, yeah, it's like if it's someone trying to provide a leak, but it doesn't really sound like they would have much to benefit from this. Like if it's a big report, like Apple Glass is ready or this foldable iPhone is going to come out at this point. It's like, okay, that's a big story. So you're going to get a lot of traffic. You're going to get a lot of attention by claiming that. Whereas just saying same design, new chip. Well, yeah, it sounds like Apple. I mean, that's what the iPhone SE is going to be. Same design, new chip. iPad Air 5, same design, new chip. Mm-hmm. MacBook Pro kind of goes in line with everything else at that event. So me hearing that is like, if that's coming out at this event, I don't think they need an M1 Pro or M1 Max Mac Mini. But if that does happen, that would have been when I upgraded if I was the kind of guy that was like, no, I need a desktop. But because we were traveling more this year, I could justify the laptop, and those happened to be the first to get the new powerful chips that could actually
came at
bid
the right
out my
time.
iMac Pro. Perfect time. Well, it would have been great if it came out sooner.
Okay.
But,
Whatever.
other than that,
I guess one question I have about the M2 is it's just it's a performance boost on the M1, but it doesn't overshadow the M1 Pro and Max chips, right?
correct.
Okay.
It's like, from what we've read, it's the same number from sources that were right about the M1 Pro and M1 Max. They have said the M2 is the same number of performance cores and efficiency cores as the M1.
Mm-hmm.
So those individual cores might get a little bit better, but the difference between like M1 and M1 Pro is 4 high performance cores and 8 high performance cores. So there's like a huge difference in the number of actual like cores that are being used for stuff. And like with the M1, it was 8 core GPU, M1 Pro 16 core GPU, and M1 Max 32 core GPU. With the rumored specs of the M2 chip are same 4 performance cores, but instead of 8 core GPU, it's now 10 core GPU.
Interesting.
And maybe those individual cores get a little bit better. So I expect like a marginal improvement, probably not a huge massive step change. I want to guess a 15% or 20% improvement on performance.
I'll hold you to that.
Whereas
whenever I see the teleprompter say, we've got this improvement.
Yeah.
15 to 20%.
Hold me to it. I think I'll be right on that, because usually year over year the individual cores don't see massive jumps. And I don't think it's a different architecture. I think it's still 5 nanometer. That's also where you would see a bigger jump if they were making the transition to 4 nanometer architecture, 3 nanometer. You would see a bigger leap, but I don't think that's what's happening. So, yeah, it's a improvement on M1, yes, but definitely not going to surpass M1 Pro, because just the power consumption alone wouldn't be high enough. So it's gonna make sense in a MacBook Air. It will probably find its way in an iPad Pro, unfortunately. As much as it doesn't need it, that's probably what it'll get. And I also think that they'll put it in a Mac Mini, just Maybe they'll improve the Thunderbolt controllers, because one of the reasons the M1 Mac Mini has 2 Thunderbolt ports instead of 4 like the Intel one is just because the M1 chip has I think only 1 Thunderbolt controller. 1 or 2. And that's why we have more ports on the MacBooks, MacBook Pros, was because they have the extra controllers. So if the Mac Mini gets the M2 chip and that has better controllers, then they could add the 4th port option back and then completely get rid of the one last Intel Mac Mini that they're still selling for some reason.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in hell, you stupid
Jeez.
Intel piece of... I'm sorry.
Tech
I had
hell.
the Intel Mac Mini. It was terrible.
That's sad.
Relative to the M1.
Well, yeah.
But it had really good I/O for the time, though. It was like $800, and you had 4 Thunderbolt ports and 2 USB-A ports, plus HDMI and Ethernet. And it was just a plethora of ports compared to the 24-inch iMac or a MacBook.
Yeah, I'm genuinely interested in the Mac Mini. That was, I think, something that I brought up to you when I was going to upgrade to a new computer from my...
And that's what I recommended, I think.
Yeah, you pushed it. You're like, you should get the Mac Mini. I'm like, yeah, but what about the new 24-inch iMac that's probably coming out? And you're like, no.
Ugly.
If the leaks are right, it's going to have a white bezel. It's going to be weird or whatever.
I mean, I didn't...
No.
I like the concept of all-in-ones. I loved my iMac Pro for the time. I still have it. I'm looking right at it. I like the concept of simplicity and just one device doing everything. You don't need a bunch of extra connectors and ports and Mac Mini is not ideal, but I just the dream iMac I was looking for didn't happen, so that's why I was bitter towards it. Yeah. But I'm hoping that iMac Pro caters to the market they're shooting for fairly well. I was a little bit concerned to find out Ross Young said it wouldn't have as many dimming zones as the MacBook Pro, which was weird. I was like, if it's a bigger display, it should have more dimming zones, not less.
Especially if you're plugging into the wall. You should be able to have more, I guess, not creativity, but at least like you've got more ample space. What am I trying to say?
Power draw.
You definitely have more freedom in designing what you can do with a desktop than you can with a laptop, because the laptop has to fit many different needs and has to be a certain form factor. Where the desktop, like, you don't need to have it paper thin. You can have it as thick as you want. You can stuff as much technology into it as you can. And no one's really going to care necessarily as long as you've got all the capability that a desktop should probably have, especially with the name Pro from Apple. Usually Pro means you're getting something with this that is significantly better or a bigger increase than the base.
Right. You're paying more. That's what Pro means. So you should get more.
Yeah. Instead of like the auto industry where you get like, oh, this is the premium. And you're like, so is that better? No, this is the base the base standard look or whatever. You're like, then why is it called premium?
F-150 Lightning, the base model, is called Pro, which I always thought was weird.
Exactly.
The cheapest Lightning is Pro, and then it's XLT, Lariat, Platinum.
Lariat's a very old name. It's a legacy name that they'll stick with. XLT is... I think XLT would have fit the bill better instead of Pro. Just called the XLT because... Yeah,
Pro sounds like it should be more. That should be the higher thing, but no, it's the entry level.
I don't know. Yeah,
I don't get it.
I guess the one thing I am looking forward to this year is an upgrade for the AirPods Pro. I've loved mine, but I think similar to your critiques, it just doesn't have a good battery in it, and it needs to be better. Because
it's the worst battery of all the AirPods.
I'm working 9 or 10 hour days, and I'm constantly like maybe at least 5 or 6 times during the day, like one ear, the other ear, one ear, the other ear. I never really do both unless like I'm walking a crazy distance. I'm like, it'd be good to jam out to music and not have to listen to anything else besides, I don't know, get in the zone, I guess. But
right. I can't think of anything this year that I really am planning on buying in regards to Apple, just because I blew all my money last year on new watch, new phone, new laptop, and that was probably more than I'd spent in a while on Apple. So I'm kind of all maxed out. I'm not interested
You
in
are
a new
maxed
iPad.
out.
8 terabytes of storage.
Ooh.
But the one thing I could see myself potentially getting this year is new AirPods if these start acting up more. So far, they're fine, but they're getting old, and I can imagine one of them starting to get quieter than the other. And also, I just really, really want AirPods Pro with the MagSafe charge case, because I use MagSafe Duo all the time, and I love when I had the AirPods 3, I loved it when they snapped on. It was so much more satisfying. Now I have to try to align it every time. But yeah, MagSafe Duo worked wonderfully on our trip.
Good.
Used that a ton, and my wife even used it for her watch when she was like, I don't want to bring my own watch charger, so I'll just charge mine one night, and then she'll charge hers the next night, and we'd leapfrog with the watch charger. And my lightning port was acting up. I'm not actually sure if it was my port or the cable. The cable might have been acting up because my wife was using the same cable to try to charge her phone and AirPods, and it wasn't charging. So at first I thought, oh no, I broke my lightning port. Whatever. I use MagSafe. But it turned out, I think, that the cable is busted, not the phone. So
Well, that's good to
it
hear.
worked out. We were never stuck with it. Actually, I was really impressed by how fast the A15 chip was, because we were almost starting to board our flight, and there was an update ready on my phone, and I was like, oh cool, that update's ready. So I just hit install, and it started restarting, and then I was like, oh wait, I need to check in really quick. I was like, they're gonna need to scan the code when I get on the plane. So I was like in line with the status bar loading, and it's at like the very beginning, and I was
Oh,
like,
no.
I hope this installs quickly. And I thought, oh wait, the boarding pass is on my watch. So I opened the wallet app on my watch. It's not there. Normally it is,
Ooh.
but I'm on a beta, so I think that's why some things aren't working. So I was concerned for a minute there that that
You wouldn't be able to
I
get on
was
the
gonna
plane.
be like, excuse me, my phone is updating.
That
But
is a 2022 problem, isn't it? I can't board the plane because
Luckily-
my phone isn't on because it's updating. Because
Yeah.
I pressed the update button in the line to get on
Right.
the plane.
Luckily, the A15 chip was pretty fast and it installed, so I was good. I scanned it, I got it.
I mean, the worst case scenario
But-
is you just have to hang back and wait with the next boarding group. Unless you were the last boarding group, then I guess there's some...
Worst case scenario, the phone gets stuck in a boot loop.
Oh, well,
But
yeah, I guess that's
actually-
worst case scenario. Never mind.
better answer is that since my wife placed the order on the tickets, she had my QR code on her phone, so she would just
Yeah, if anything, she's
Scan
got
it
the
again for
email
me.
or whatever. So
yeah.
you would be...
It would have. I don't think I would have been stranded over a update, but that would have been
Apple
a bad
Sheep
situation.
gets stranded in airport because he updates phone before boarding flight.
Yeah.
That'd be...
Before we wrap up, we've been going. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. Go
I
ahead.
had a thought. I know we've been going longer than usual. Originally, we were just going to do a 40-minute episode because Nick had to get going, but then I was like, I've got time, I think, to make this a full episode. We got to compensate for last week's no episode.
Yeah.
So we're giving you bonus time, everyone. There's a developing situation with my internet that I wanted to talk to you about specifically, because it kind of relates
Me?
to you. You, since you're on the tech podcast, and this is not EV related, so it's perfect here. But Starlink has unfortunately not been very good.
What?
At least for live streaming, I should preface.
Okay.
It's great at everything except live streaming. I've been talking to you on FaceTime we did the EV podcast before this, and this entire tech podcast has been on Starlink. So let me know now, how has it been the past couple hours?
You've lagged out, I think, once during the EV, and then
I remember that one.
tiny bit spotty sometimes. Like, I can see sometimes the quality
The quality will drop
dips a little bit, but you haven't dropped yet
Yeah.
this whole entire podcast, which I still think is a thumbs up to me. I mean, though I guess this is coming from a guy who's using Frontier Internet.
Right.
That
you have really bad.
I have 16 megabits for download, or maybe 15 megabits for
Yeah.
download and 1 for upload. It's miserable. And surprisingly, I live in the Bay Area, so you would think,
I know.
why doesn't this guy have better internet? Why doesn't he have Google Fiber or something like that? But
You'd think.
it's troubling to hear that I guess the Starlink, that you would think it's a dish that is constantly looking for satellites all the time to connect to and have a high, or at least somewhat high bandwidth like connection, is having trouble with, I guess, a simple call like what we're doing right now. But then even so, trying to stream that data up, I guess that's more of upload speeds, which is the issue.
Yeah. Well, what's weird is, like, the last time we did the podcast, I chatted with Randy for probably an hour and a half, 2 hours after we finished the call. And originally, I switched my phone to the unlimited data because I have Mint Mobile referral credits, so they're pretty cheap, very cheap to do unlimited data. So I was like, all right, Starlink's spotty. I'll do as much as I can on my phone. That way I can use Starlink for most things. Plus, I like being able to upload videos and live stream at the same time. That's really helpful, which I couldn't do even on Comcast. With $150 a month, you couldn't live stream and upload video at the same time. They just didn't have the upload for it.
No.
But when I recorded the podcast last week, I kept bugging out and freezing, even though I was on cellular. I wasn't even on Starlink.
Wow.
And they were like, uh-oh, Drew's Starlinking. And I'm like, I'm not on Starlink. I don't get it. So I switched the phone to Wi-Fi, which is Starlink, and it was smoother. And I was like, well, we've been talking on the phone now for probably, because we didn't start recording the moment we answered the call. So I'd say we've been on a call now for like 3 hours at this point.
Probably.
Or close to 3 hours. And we've had maybe one little hiccup that lasted a couple seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is the live streaming so much laggier? Like, when I go live on YouTube, it's like 10% frame drops. And what's disappointing is that I got Starlink a year ago, so I'm working on my 1 year review right now. And at that time, I was averaging about 3% frame drops. So it was a little choppy here and there, but 97% of the stream was normal. So I was like, okay, it's in beta. It's kind of in its early stages. It's a bit buggy. I'm going to hold on to it, and hopefully it gets better. And it did. Throughout most of 2021, it steadily improved. And by like October, November, I was averaging less than 1% of frame drop during a live stream. I was like, wow, this is almost perfect. It's almost perfectly stable. Obviously, I've never had any issues streaming movies and TV shows. That's never been an issue.
It's not an
uploading
issue in my
videos
case either. With 16 megabits,
right.
I can watch stuff at
16 megabits is enough.
Yeah.
So I think that I was a little frustrated when they got rid of the beta terminology and I was still getting frame drops, but I was like, for most people using internet, Starlink is going to be fine because most people are not live streaming. Most people are watching movies and shows across various devices or playing games and posting things occasionally. And I upload 4K at 60 videos on Starlink, and it's fine with that because you can get decent speeds. They're just not consistent. But when you have a big file that you're uploading, it just changes the duration of how long it's going to take. When the speeds get really fast, the upload speeds up. When it slows down, it just hangs for a little bit, but it's fine. So live streaming's the only issue. But once I got back from my Puerto Rico trip, it was suddenly averaging 10%. And it's like, this is the worst it's ever been. And you would have thought it would have improved over time. So I don't know if it's because I think Elon said recently they're at like 250,000 users in one of his more recent tweets. So I think that maybe they're just adding so many people to the network and they're not compensating it with enough satellites. So the result is everyone getting a bit less performance or so. And I found a channel. I'm sorry I can't remember the name, but it's okay because I didn't actually want to recommend it. But there's a channel that was explaining how to improve speeds and reliability on Starlink. And I watched the video. Again, I'm not going to say who, but I'm trying to cause drama, but it took a long time to get to the point. It's like a bunch of fluff and a bunch of like not answering the question. But once he finally answered the question, it was like, contact Starlink and get them to change your ground station to be something close by to you because if you go to this one website, it'll tell you what ground station you're relaying from. And mine is in Washington. It's like in Seattle, which is not near to me at all.
No, that's
and because
very far away from my knowledge.
The satellites have to go up and then back down all the way until they hit a ground station in Seattle, and then to your server that you're trying to stream to, like YouTube. That adds latency and that adds lag, because I'm trying to figure out what the cause is. Like, I can handle a video call like this for several hours and it's mostly fine, fairly little issues, but I'm not seeing that with the live streaming. And I was like, maybe it's because the YouTube server is really far from the Washington ground station, so when there is a hiccup, it can't recover very quickly. So when it hiccups bad. So the video basically told me, reach out to Starlink and tell them to switch your ground station to the closest possible one. There's a ground station in San Jose, which is much closer to me. And I figured, well, I'll email them and see if that works, because it seemed to work for this guy. So I emailed them, and the response I got back was really disappointing. It was like, hi, we want you to know that the ground station makes no difference on performance, and we're looking at your data, and everything seems great. Have a nice day. And I said in my email, like, I'm trying to live stream. It's really spotty. It's gotten a lot worse in the last couple months. Like, can you switch my ground station to be right next to me? Because that would likely improve the stability. And they were like, it won't. Our data says you're experiencing fine service. I was like,
that data's wrong.
It's like lagging so many times as I'm doing these live streams on it. And they're like, no, the data says it's fine. So part of me wonders if it's a YouTube issue and not a Starlink issue. And it's just like the ground station doesn't communicate well with YouTube. But basically, thinking long term here, I'm wondering if it would be worth trying out, at least testing this T-Mobile home internet service I've heard about, which is $50 a month, so it's half the price. And I'm doing all my live streams now off my phone anyway, which is using the T-Mobile network through Mint Mobile. And that seems to be not as fast as Starlink, but definitely more stable, more consistent speeds, which is what you want with live streaming. The upload speed doesn't really matter all that much as long as it's a stable connection. And if it's possible to work off of that, I don't know if it would be worth keeping Starlink just as a fun backup, especially because I know you've been waiting on your order for so long. I'm not 100% sold on this plan because I don't know how the home internet thing works. I've heard from other reviews that some people say it's spotty too. So if it's the same problem, then that doesn't really fix anything. So, like, if we did end up trying the home internet and it ended up working, do you think it would be fun to try to, like, bring Dishy to your place and see how it performs where you are?
It'd be interesting to see what SpaceX would do, because from what you've told me is that whenever someone gets their dish, it's kind of geolocated to a certain, like, acreage or region around
certain cell.
Around where the delivery address is, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So to bring it here, it'd be interesting. I'd fully welcome it, just because my 16 megabits per second it's good for phone calls according to FaceTime, but it's terrible for if I ever want to do a live stream on YouTube. I've done a few, not really live streams, but more of like shared screens on Discord to multiple users, and Frontier seems to be doing fine with that. I sometimes play some video games with a couple friends on the Discord and share my screen, and it does fine, which I'm surprised by, because it's like, I don't know, like a low tier live streaming type of scenario. And they don't notice any issues. Like, if anything, they notice maybe like an audio issue, and that's just me not being close to the mic or something else. But besides that, I just can't stream to YouTube. It just doesn't work. I don't have enough bandwidth. I only have, I think, 1 or less than 1 megabit per second being uploaded. So it could be a YouTube issue, because I tried in the past and that didn't work. So it's entirely possible that you just need a higher capability with a stronger connection that maybe T-Mobile's offering compared to Starlink. Part of me wants to say maybe this is just a phase with Starlink and it'll get better. But
I'd hope so.
with them, they launch so many satellites a month, and I think they just lost like 40 recently due to a geomagnetic storm. But I don't think that's going to affect you too much necessarily because they've only been,
they never came online.
Yeah, and they've only been adding. They're not really subtracting as much. Yeah, some of them burn up, but it's not like they're losing more than they're gaining. So it wouldn't make sense that between the time that you entered the beta and now that they've somehow gone down in terms of the population of satellites up there, especially since they said, was it like their first shell is done and now they're working on the second shell?
And these have the laser sat stuff, so satellites can individually send data between each other, whereas the first shell I don't think could do that. So,
which is very quizzical to me, or I guess very concerning, because you had better speeds before than you do now.
Right.
I guess that could be attributed to the amount of users or the population that is using the service now. But
that's what makes the most sense to me. I'm pretty sure it's like, okay, we went from having like 70,000 users when I started on the network to now 250,000. That's the only variable that's drastically changed that would explain why something would be more spotty. But again, it's just so weird that like the video calls don't have this same issue.
No.
It's makes me think it's a YouTube server related thing.
It could be. It could be the amount that the YouTube servers are taking in, or like as much as they can. It might not be as optimized as they want, but I wouldn't think that entirely, just because they have to accommodate for every single person who wants to just jump on YouTube and live stream. Like you could have a whole I just think of like when people go to these Tesla events, it's hundreds of people like all streaming to YouTube, probably be like, look, I'm at this GigaFest or whatever. Like can Google, I mean, I guess it's only 100 people, but maybe think of like a concert where everyone is filming Harry Styles on stage and maybe a good chunk of them are trying to live stream it. Yeah, there's a lot of bandwidth issues there with everyone being in the same location, but still, like, I guess my point is maybe it is on YouTube's side of not being able to optimize things as much as they can. And you as a Starlink user kind of get shortchanged because you may have that capability, but it may not be as optimized as it can be for your situation. I wouldn't know too much in that field, but that's my only guess from what I've observed and what I've heard today from a very disappointing situation, just because Starlink sounds really cool. It's perfect for my situation that I'm in right now. Until like
if I handed my account off to you, would you take it?
I would bear the burden, Drew, and take it.
Would you bear the burden? Because I don't feel good just canceling, because there's no way to pause service. You can't like turn it off for a month and then turn it back on. So if I just cancel it, I'm just gonna have a big fancy dish that does nothing.
I think,
and I know your internet situation isn't good, so that's why I was curious to ask you about it.
The only big concern for, I guess, for yourself and me is it's a version 1 dish, which means all like the video that you put out about installing it looked like a nightmare because you had to snake a whole bunch of holes everywhere and it had a plug that you couldn't. You can't
detach the cable, right?
Yeah, you had to plug it in one way, basically. You can't put in another cable and thread it through or something. That's the only concern that I see with you disassembling it from your house. And then
disassembly will be easy.
I guess, but then reassembly at my place as well.
True.
I don't necessarily want to make my house Swiss cheese.
That's fair.
Yeah, but with all the problems that we usually have at the house. Anyways, I wouldn't be shy to try it out. I would definitely look into it. It's something that me and the wife have been waiting for a year now or so. I think, was it Nick texted all of us around the same time when the reservations or orders
Yep.
order page came
Yep.
up, and I was
remember.
probably among the first 10,000 or whatever that ordered, and I'm still waiting, and
Right.
I'm starting to give up hope on seeing it, and I don't know.
Well, this might be a cheaper way to get a hold of it.
Yeah, I'm glad though that you said that you're willing to try out like the T-Mobile home internet instead of saying I'm willing to try out the upgraded version of Starlink, the table McFlatface.
$500 a month.
Yeah,
The table McFlatface.
thing is huge, or so I've heard, or at least like
Looks like my desk.
imagine
Just the whole thing.
imagine mounting a table to your roof.
No, I'm not that willing. Because also from the speed tests they showed on the website, it looks like the download is really good, but the upload looks almost exactly the same. So I was like, that doesn't really fix my problem. Download has always been fine with Starlink. But I've been chatting with customer support. I've been following what other people are doing. I wonder if some of it has to do with location. Because I have definitely seen other users get faster speeds in different parts of the world than I get. So I'm wondering if you would get faster speeds in your area. That would be great if possible.
I've heard Australia gets
if
pretty good coverage. We could just all go to Australia.
That's true. They're opening up soon. I visit my father-in-law there. He's got a place.
That'd be nice.
So he would need Starlink because
Oh yeah.
we've talked about going to Australia for a while, but he's on normal satellite internet now, and it's terrible, obviously.
Oh yeah.
So
Broadband spectrum.
he would stand to benefit, but I basically I'm not against trying the home internet because it is cheaper, and I'm not sure what kind of speeds we'll get because if it's anything like my phone, it'll be okay. But at this point, if it's half the price and I can live stream off it, then for my use case, unfortunately, that does make a lot of sense. I still love SpaceX and I support what they're doing, so I don't want to just cancel and then
No.
throw it away. I was like, I want to find a good use for this. I want to find someone who can take advantage of it, someone who needs it, or someone who's waiting. If not you, I'd probably reach out to Nick and see what happens if we bring it out there for him.
Yeah, especially since SpaceX has a few dishes down there in Brownsville.
Right. They do. Custom dishes as well. So I just figured you're closer, so it'd be easier to drive it to you, and it'd probably make a fun video just to see what happens when you take it somewhere else. I mean, there's a setting in the account page that's like change location.
Did you move?
Yeah, you can basically tell it like I'm here now, and it says service is only guaranteed at your home address, but they have a feature built in for moving, so I'd like to see how it works.
I've seen that on my account page, even though that I don't own one, that I'm able to change the location. I'm like, I can say that I'm all the way in Washington, and maybe I'll get the dish.
There's an idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because they've changed a couple things on the website now. There's even an option to order a second one, which I thought was interesting.
Really?
So if I wanted to get the updated square one, I can place an order. It'll probably be 4 years before I get it, but I could order an additional one and have it attached to the same account, which is kind of interesting.
I'm sure there's improvements, but like, I wonder if there's a drastic improvement between the circular V1 design and the rectangular V2 design. And if that...
From the speed tests I've seen, not noticeably.
Okay. Because that would be something to think about, is if maybe it's just an issue with your specific Starlink. Maybe getting a different one might be the solution, because if other people are having basically no problems with it and it's working great for both download and upload on their end, it might not be a bad idea to check out the version 2 of it and see whether it works or not. And then I guess the problem there is if it doesn't work, then you're going to have to sell it to someone else. But then I guess in the case that you just brought up,
if it doesn't work, you're paying $200 a month. And again, if you want a second Starlink dish, you got to spend another $500. So it's kind of an expensive solution.
And now you have to find two customers to give to, or I guess sell to.
Yeah, I honestly don't think that's the problem. It could be, but Chris from Dirty Tesla just did a live stream on Starlink, and he was having the same types of freezes. PewDiePie also streams on Starlink, although I guess he has the circular one as well. But everyone I know who's live streamed on Starlink has the same issue. So I don't think it's an isolated instance, but yeah, it's definitely like,
That's a disappointment.
I think time to rethink the decision when it's been a year and things are getting worse. Like, I definitely was willing to put up with some frame drops because, for the record, Comcast did this too. I hope people are aware. Xfinity was not perfect, like super stable all the time either. They would have day-long dropouts.
Yep.
Which I haven't had with Starlink.
I was a
and I've
customer
had
too
times
for
where
Comcast, and that too was the biggest detriment as well.
It's not like any ISP is perfect. Like, I've had a friend that lives close by that's like, Comcast is down and I need to post something for a client. Can I come over to your place? So he used Starlink when Comcast wasn't working. So I'm like, here you go. So I'm okay to put up with, like, my limit is kind of like 3% frame drops is enough that an audience can kind of tolerate it without it being too frustrating. Obviously, 0 is the goal. If you can get 0, that's great, but it's just rare. And once you start dipping far below 3% and start hitting 10, 15% frame drops, it's like, okay, I don't even want to watch this anymore. It's so laggy. It's not even worth bothering. So that's unfortunately the predicament we're in. If I would have known, it was it was still cool to be in the beta program as a whole, and it's still possible I'll stay on it. You know, if I try the T-Mobile home internet and it's spotty and doesn't really fix the problem, then I won't keep it. Luckily, it's no contract. You can cancel at any time. So I think it's, you just pay the $50. That includes the price of the router. And then if it's spotty, I'll just cancel and send it back. And then I'm out $50.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think at that point, you just come to the conclusion that your location is not ideal for streaming necessarily, which then just propels you to travel more.
Yeah, it's like, instead of being home for the busy months of the year when there's an Apple event or something, I'm going to intentionally travel to get to a place with stable
Come to the Bay and you can live stream it outside of Apple Park. Like, oh, here's the event. It just happened.
Here they are. Right.
Right?
That would be kind of
Because that's
fun.
how it works.
Yeah.
It's live streamed, right? It's
watching the event from Apple Park. That might be fun, actually.
You should do that sometime.
It's a good way to get myself attacked or something. But yeah, like, what's frustrating is there are people that we visit frequently in our area that have fiber. Mm-hmm. And whenever we're at their house, I do a speed test, and I'm like, oh, this looks so nice.
Maybe we just
like
move
1,000
down the street.
up.
Just get fiber internet that way, and then you never have to.
That's
worry
probably
about it.
the most. It's not down the street, but it is like, I would say, within a 20-minute drive of where I am. There are houses with fiber, but they are not as cheap as my current house. So
You pay for it.
that's the most expensive solution to the problem, is to just move and buy a whole new property. But I don't know if the bit rate of my live stream justifies getting into debt and buying and selling a house.
It is your business, and I would think if you're able to provide more quality content at a faster speed, and then even produce more if you wanted to, and it's still very high quality, it might be worth it in the end.
It could be.
Not investment advice. This is not
investment advice. The problem is
research.
The one thing I've learned about YouTube and the algorithm after all my, how many years has it been now? 2017. So 5 years of doing YouTube full time.
Happy almost decade. Or I guess half decade, I guess, whatever.
Half decade.
Yeah, half decade. Wow.
It's like, the algorithm is very unpredictable and very hard to, like, you could throw a ton of time and a ton of money into a project and have that video flop. And then you could also do some afterthought, oh, I guess I'll do this video, and have it take off and do great. So that's why I'm kind of hesitant to say, like, if I spend all this money on making sure my live streams are 4K 60 and the bitrate is really good, it could all result in pretty much the exact same or even less than what I'm generating from live streams now. So it could all fall apart and just be like, well, that wasn't worth it.
You never know.
So that makes me hesitant, but it would be nice.
It would be nice.
If fiber was here, I would totally get it.
I
wish
would
it
too.
was.
Unfortunately, there isn't at my location, which is, mind you, not too far from the bay. So
You're probably also within a 20-minute drive of fiber houses, right?
yes, yes, I am, and it's the most frustrating thing ever because it's right there. Almost can get my grubby little fingers on it, but
Yeah,
it's too far.
it's too bad.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I guess I don't really have any final thoughts, Drew, but
All right.
I wanted to thank you for having me on the Tech Podcast for the first time.
What do you mean, Randy? You're on this show every week.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
It's pretty
Whoa.
normal. You forgot who you were
Who
for
am
a
I?
second there. But
duality.
yeah, thanks for filling in since everybody's lives are busy. That's what I mean by saying the universe is against us. Everyone's got life events going on. This whole trip I took the past 2 weeks was fairly unplanned and unscheduled, but
Sometimes those are the
I think we
best.
should be home. We should be home now for the foreseeable future. So hopefully that means more stability in the podcasts. We thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you all next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.